Okay, we're live on Facebook. Give people just a minute to tune in, check that notification, pop open their screens. All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another stream. I'm your host, Kyle Hooten. You're watching Kyle Hooten Tonight. Minnesota's justice system has been under scrutiny by the left for the better part of a year since the death of George Floyd. Meanwhile, cries for criminal justice reform grow louder every day across the nation. While most pundits concerned with this issue feel that the justice system is too punitive with dealing with low-level offenders, others have raised the alarm in the opposite direction, saying the system doesn't do enough to protect the public from the most dangerous types of offenders, those who target children. Joining us now is Michele Lentz of the Child Protection League, who says Minnesota courts are among the worst in the nation when it comes to locking up pedophiles. She's also established herself as a staunch advocate for the protection of children against the state as critical race theory and progressive ideas about youth and gender sexuality seep into schools. Michele, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Kyle. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, this is a very important topic.
So
and we've
I
got
can,
a lot of pressing
you
questions.
want me to just
I guess to
want me to
start,
jump in and just talk about, go ahead.
There's a little bit of a lag here. It's kind of throwing me off. So I guess to start, we should talk about this very disturbing issue you recently wrote an op-ed about with Alpha News, and that is the way Minnesota treats child predators in the criminal justice system. Tell us about that.
Yeah, sometime last year, maybe, this is some of the statistics that were shared with us were just astonishing. And I think I'll start by just sharing those statistics that came out of both the Minnesota has a sentencing guideline commission that is supposed to give recommendations to the courts, and the courts are supposed to judge and sentence convicted criminals, based on those guidelines. And then there was an organization that, I'll hold this up, I don't know if you can see this, the National Association to Protect Children in 2016 issued a report, and they had looked at data in Minnesota from 2007 to 2015. And so a lot of the statistics that I'll share with you now come from both that report and from the Guidelines Commission itself. But get this, just over the statewide average for criminal sexual conduct. So this is, the rape of a child under 13, 50 to 60% of those convicts were given a stay. In other words, they were given probation and virtually no prison sentence, 50 to 60% of the time. And that's for a contact crime. When you're talking about a crime where the convict was convicted of possession of sexual abuse imagery, pictures of the rape and torture of children, even as young as toddlers, we're talking about, possession of that kind of material, those convicts got probation 85% of the time, statewide, as a statewide average. Some counties did better, some counties actually did worse, but that is a shocking statistic. And then the third crime, so you have possession of child abuse imagery, sexual abuse imagery. You have contact crimes, which is actually hands-on abusing a child. And then you have dissemination, which is trafficking in that sexual abuse imagery. And about 74% of the time, those convicts also only got probation. We were shocked to read those statistics.
So you're telling me
we felt like we had to do something about it.
The overwhelming majority of people who are engaged in the consumption and distribution of child abuse imagery get off without ever serving prison time. And over half of people who actually made physical contact with the child that they were abusing are also not going to prison. What do their sentences even look like? What is the punishment if not jail time?
it's you know, there's a couple of different forms of probation. There's a stay of adjudication. I don't necessarily think it's worthwhile for people. They don't have to get all the way into the weeds of the technical terminology, but just to understand that that some form of probation or getting probation and moving, requiring them to register as a sex offender. The guidelines refer to a grid, and the severity of the crime and the amount of previous crimes all kind of move up the grid. And so if you're a repeat offender, you're going to get a higher sentence. You know, if it's, you know, supposedly a contact crime, you're going to get a higher sentence. But the fact is that on that grid, there are a number of convictions that, even though there may be the sentencing guidelines might say, you know, 7 to 15 years for a certain crime, there is a presumption of probation. And so the courts will just routinely give these people probation. And the legislature tinkered around with it a little bit, and they asked the Minnesota Sentencing Guidelines Commission in 2019 to write a report and give them an assessment. And that initial report, which Alpha News had picked up, had published a number of articles by Will Krumholtz evaluating that report. And he really did a good job of explaining that the evaluation or the report, the initial preliminary report that the Sentencing Guidelines Commission issued, just validated everything that was in that report by Protect.
Right.
And then the final report came out just this last January. And Will also had an excellent article in Alpha. People, to get the background, really should just go read those articles, and you can understand the background and the depth of it. But the majority really is committed to the status quo. Personally, I think the majority on that Sentencing Guidelines Commission, they should resign.
Yeah.
The minority, so there was a majority report, a minority report. The minority report actually asked for an increase in the sentencing guidelines, bringing it a little bit closer to what the federal government has at their level. And the legislature, I think now, has some legislation to adopt some of the minority report, but we're still talking, if there were 32, I think Will said there were 32 cases of dissemination and 400 cases of possession.
Wow.
If the legislature does what they are proposing to do right now, 8 of those 32 that got time in prison will grow a little bit closer to the 32. But the 400 who are holding collections, we're not talking a couple pictures here, collections of the rape, torture, and abuse of children, still will get probation. And we at the Child Protection League just think that the majority of Minnesotans would find that incredibly unacceptable.
So for those of you who are just tuning in, we're on the line right now with Michele Lentz of the Child Protection League. She's the president and a co-founder of that organization. We're talking about Minnesota's lackadaisical approach to child predators in the criminal justice system. Can you explain to us exactly when this lackadaisical approach manifested in the state, exactly what caused it, and how can we fight it? How can we come up to what the national standard is for prosecuting these people?
I don't know how long this has been going on. The report that Protect put out looked at 2007 to 2015.
Okay.
I think that there are some statistics that, we could probably dig up that go back further than that. But I think we can at least say since, the millennium, our state, which I'm sure they brag that they really care about children at our agencies and at our legislature, really have not tackled this problem, and they have known about it since 2015, or at least 2016 when Protect issued their report. And, Representative Matt Grossel, in 2019, I believe, introduced two bills to bring the Minnesota sentencing standards up to the level of the federal government. So right now, yeah, our sentences, what is being doled out in the state of Minnesota is some of the worst, if not the worst, in the country. Yeah. One thing that we could do would just be to bring our guidelines up to the level of the federal government. Right. And Matt Grossel's bill does that. And so I think if you just give me a second here, I'll pull up exactly what that'll do.
Sure.
So it would adopt the federal criminal code's tougher sentencing for child predators with in possession of child sexual abuse imagery, where the receipt, distribution, and production all carry often serious mandatory prison time. It mirrors the federal penalties for production, distribution, receipt, and possession of child sexual abuse imagery. It creates a new crime of receipt with the same penalties as dissemination, adopting the federal standard. And let me explain that a second. Sure. Right now in the state of Minnesota, these prosecutors could be prosecuting these alleged criminals with the crime of dissemination, but they're not. They're going for the lesser crime of possession, and they're prosecuting them for the lesser crime. Maybe they get more convictions that way, but that lesser crime gets them probation. Once again, the crime of dissemination, includes prison time, but that's the 8 out of 32 that got prison time. 32 were convicted of dissemination, 8 got prison time, and the 400 or so that were convicted of possession got nothing but probation. And that's the ones they're catching, right? There's not even enough funding for all of the investigations. But law enforcement must be demoralized by this. They do their job, they bring these predators in, and they know that they're not going to get them off the street.
Help me understand the logic here, because it seems like an absolute no-brainer that we would prosecute pedophiles to the national standard or above, because we don't want pedophiles free in our society. What is the argument for not prosecuting them? In your experience and in your analysis, what do people say in defense of our current policy?
I'm incredulous by what I'm hearing, but what I'm hearing from legislators about this issue is that for specifically referring to Representative Grossel's bill, the price tag is problematic. Now, let me tell you, the price tag on his bill is somewhere around $6 million. I'm pretty sure that was the cost of a building that Governor Walz bought that is still sitting empty. Not really sure.
If my memory serves me correctly, the state built an $11.5 million rest stop in northwestern Minnesota. $6 million is nothing to these people. That is an absurd argument.
Yeah, the fiscal office, I believe, said that if Grossel's bill was passed, that would increase, prison beds by about 55 a year. And I just ask legislators who think that's too expensive, just what is the price tag for our children? What's the price tag you're willing to pay to protect our children? The other argument is mandatory minimums. They don't like mandatory minimums, apparently, except if you're a felon in possession of a handgun, then they have no problem with a 5-year mandatory minimum.
I was just going to say, our government is totally happy to make millions of law-abiding citizens felons that have to serve 10 years in prison for guns, that, in my opinion, should be perfectly legal. Yeah. But they're totally unwilling to prosecute child sex offenders. I mean, the function of government is to protect people. We pay taxes so that criminals can be housed in jail. And you're telling us now that the government is hesitant to prosecute pedophiles because they don't want to put 55 more people behind bars because they think that would be too expensive.
That's what I'm being told. My gut says that's a straw man argument, and that we're not really having an honest conversation about what's really going on. But until the public demands that conversation, I don't think that conversation is going to be had. In the meantime, the public should be demanding that legislators get together. Representative Grossell has Republicans and Democrats who have signed on to his bill, but the Democrat-controlled House will not give it a hearing as of yet. And so I think the public is going to have to, this time around, help our legislators do the right thing. Absolutely. I think they need our help.
Absolutely. Not to get too editorial here, but I have one comment that I really want to make about this. There's this concept in Jungian psychology that goes, if you can't understand why somebody is acting in a given way, look at the outcome of their actions, and that must be the motive. If you can identify no higher order motive for what they're doing, they're probably doing it because they like the result. And that's a very disturbing possibility in this case. But you bring up that the public needs to bring awareness to this issue. How can they do that? What should people be doing?
So one thing they should do is they should call their state rep and their state senator and ask them to sign on as authors, excuse me, of Representative Grossell's House File 226 and House File 229. And then the companion authors, Senator Ingebretson in the Senate is the chief author of that bill. And it really encourage, in strong terms, the need for them to sign on to those bills, and then to have them speak up and ask for those bills to be heard. It doesn't matter, if we're past the first deadline or whatever, there can still be committee hearings on those bills, and they can be brought through the process next year. And there's, a dozen ways to pass a law in Minnesota, even if you've missed the committee deadline. So we're not buying that argument either. We know that there's a way to get it done. The other thing is to go to the Child Protection League's website, CPL, which stands for Child Protection League, cplaction.com. And if you just scroll down the home page, you will see the information on this issue. And since, sentencing guidelines that's a weird term, we just call this the Protect Minnesota Kids Act, right? The Protect Minnesota Kids Act. And there's a flyer on there. There's a petition on there. There's a fact sheet on there. The report is on there. The bills are on there. That's your one-stop shop. You can get everything you need at cplaction.com. cplaction.com. All of our viewers should be tuning into that website as soon as the stream is over. Don't leave us yet. But speaking of the Child Protection League, as important as this issue is, you guys work on a whole plethora of other fronts, and I want to jump into that a little bit. Tell us about the other battles that you guys are fighting. So there are there's some other legislation that we are working on this year. In 2019, the Democrats introduced a comprehensive sex ed bill. This, if you're my age, this isn't the biology class you attended in 6th grade, okay?
I'm sure not.
Comprehensive sex ed today is a national agenda to indoctrinate children into basically an anything goes curriculum. The curriculum itself, there is suggested by organizations like Planned Parenthood, who brag that they are the biggest provider in the United States of comprehensive sex ed. They have a model curriculum that they think is, the way it should be. And on our website, we show you what that curriculum is. The bill in Minnesota that was introduced in 2019 and now has been introduced again would mandate comprehensive sex ed on all school districts. So no more local control. No more you parents and your school district deciding, what is appropriate for children. Now the state's gonna, lower the boom and put that mandate on you. And that is a curriculum that is harmful to children. It grooms them for sexual activity. It exposes them to every kind of sexual activity, even though they claim it's medically accurate and age appropriate. That is really BS. It's not medically accurate. You tell me, show me the science that says you can change the DNA of a biological male into the DNA of a biological female. And you show me the science that that's medically accurate. Or some of the safe sex suggestions that they're teaching children. Show me that, I don't want to get the details on a live program about what that involves, that's medically accurate. And the examples that we show you at the Child Protection League website from the book, It's Perfectly Normal, which is the curriculum that Planned Parenthood suggested.
Planned Parenthood
was
wrote
the
a curriculum.
Model curriculum. On the cover of that book, it says for ages 10 and older. Folks, just go look at the pictures in that book and you tell me if you're okay with your 10-year-old seeing those drawings and that information.
So they literally named it. Planned Parenthood came up with a sexual education curriculum that's now going to be forced into every school district in Minnesota, regardless of the district's consent. And they literally called it It's Perfectly Normal.
Yeah, the book itself was written, I believe, by a former Planned Parenthood director. They can bring in other organizations. Here's another, fact about the legislation that should concern parents is it tells the school district you can bring in non-licensed teachers to teach this curriculum.
Which opens the door for all sorts of Planned Parenthood type people coming in and speaking directly to your children, regardless of any educational background or certification.
Yeah. And the sad reality is that comprehensive sex ed is already in a lot of our schools. But you can do something about that right now. You can go to your school board. On our website, we have an evaluation tool where you can evaluate the curriculum that they are using and see if it has the 15 elements of comprehensive sex ed. We did this with a couple of parents in Osseo School District, went to the school. They said, yeah, come on in, you can evaluate it. We use some maybe an abstinence-based, sex ed program. They used our analysis tool and they said, well, your abstinence-based program has 12 of the 15 elements of comprehensive sex ed.
Really? And what was it lacking? What was it lacking? Was like the really out there stuff?
I'm not really sure because I wasn't part of the analysis team, but
sure.
Yeah, we're there to help. We can give you the tools to be able to do that locally. But if this bill passes, this is House File 358, and this has already gotten hearings in the Minnesota House. If this bill passes, your school board is going to tell you, don't bother coming in because we can't do anything about it because this is a mandate from the state.
Right. So this is really sort of a last ditch do or die scenario. You have to speak with your school board now, because if this bill, House File 358, passes, it's over. You're going to be going up against the might of the state, correct?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to probably evaluate if the public schools are a safe place for your children even now. But this mandate, the critical race theory element, all of what Governor Walz is proposing with equity, these are all really serious issues regarding public education. So that's this comprehensive sex ed is just one, although I would assert that this is the vehicle, one of the prime vehicles that they will use to get to the minds of children and transform our country, destroy families by indoctrinating children into the ideals of comprehensive sex ed. So yeah, you can still do something about it locally in your school district because your school district is not mandated to teach this. So go in and clean it up. They're not going to do it on their own, I guarantee you, without the people rising up. And then contact your legislators and tell them, as they're working through the budget this year, and they're, how it is when they get to the end, Kyle, there's
Yeah.
like compromises and things that happen in the middle of the night, and make sure you tell your legislator that you don't want comprehensive sex ed to be a bargaining chip.
Right.
When it comes to them having to, everybody has to compromise. I get it. There's a divided House and Senate. Mm-hmm. But what I tell legislators is, if you're for comprehensive sex ed, I am not for you.
Absolutely. A strong message, the one that needs to be said. And I really do encourage people, go to the website, cplaction.com. I've researched this topic a little bit myself, and I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, this is not telling children to, use birth control or take common sense measures to prevent STDs. This is them talking about hardcore transgender ideology. It's talking about sexualities you've never heard of. It's talking about relationships between people who define their gender based on new parameters. And it's confusing to children. Children's minds are malleable. And when their teacher, an authority figure, is in the classroom saying, look, if you feel a certain way, you can change your identity and change your dating profile and start having these new experiences, that's going to have an impact on kids. And I think you're a fool if you don't realize it. But speaking of the schools, there's a third topic I want to broach. We're on a roll here. I'm loving this interview. And that is the whole racial component. You mentioned the word equity. A lot of people don't understand what the left means by equity and what they're teaching your children in schools when they talk about equity. Tell us about that.
Yeah, equity is a buzzword. It's a buzzword that the left uses to shut up, dissent, to kind of just buzz through the people who aren't totally aware. And because it's like the Minnesota Safe and Supportive Schools Act, the anti-bullying, who's for bullying? No, nobody is. That bill, when it became law, opened the door to comprehensive sex ed to come in. And so we're talking about equity. We're saying, yeah, everybody should be equal. I guess that's it. That focuses on equal outcomes, not equal opportunities. And so it is another tool of manipulation to manipulate the narrative, to manipulate the thinking of people. The average person who thinks, I'm just all for equality, right? I here we have in Congress the Equality Act, H.R. 5. That sounds all really good. That's one of the most destructive bills that's out there right now. So the equity, so that be, let me give you an example from what has happened in Minnesota schools that we were told by teachers within the school system. One teacher told us that they were told by their principal, if you have to discipline a Black student, don't send them to our office unless you are also going to send us a white student.
Are you
because
serious?
We need, it has to be equitable.
Really? So
that's a heck of a standard, folks.
Interesting. And this was recent that this occurred?
Within the last few years, yeah.
Very interesting. I had equity described to me once by a leftist in this way. They said that because in America, not everybody starts on equal footing, we need to actually, they use the word forcible. They said we need to forcibly remove the advantage from the people who have it and distribute it to those who don't. This is not equality. These people genuinely believe that based on the color of your skin, you have different opportunities. And people with a certain color skin, white people, need to give what they have to other people because they genuinely believe that the playing field isn't fair, which is highly contestable to say the very least. But what's the state of equity education in Minnesota? How active is this in schools? Is this something that's coming up and we need to be worried about, or is this something that's already happening?
I think, critical race theory is another way to describe it. And that has permeated the schools, but not just the schools, businesses and government. And you might remember back a few months ago, President Trump establishing the 1776 Commission, teaching civics, because and then recently Governor DeSantis saying there is no place for critical race theory in Florida. Why? Because it opens this door of again, propaganda that will create a massive distrust and hatred for your own country. Why? Because critical race theory establishes this premise that because the settlers, and the founders were white, that the country is systemically racist. And that if you say you're not racist, that's just proof that you're racist.
Right.
You are racist because you're white. And because you're racist, you must now face that. And you must face your white privilege and your whiteness and your white fragility. I mean, these are the buzzwords that they're putting forward. I mean, it's a poisonous brand of identity politics that groups people by their skin color. But it's more than that. In education, it's a blend of this Marxist transformational education and postmodern theory, where objective truth is just a social construct, and people are victims of circumstances. But the reality is it's going to divide and pit people against each other and shame people for being white. And it'll be, and it's, there's no in between. You either bow down to this dogma and you basically admit that because you're white, you're a racist, or you're going to be punished because disagreement's not going to be tolerated.
Absolutely. You hit on so many important points here. This is absolutely fantastic. I like how you brought in Marxism and postmodernism in, because that's something that a lot of people don't realize. They don't realize that critical race theory is to race what Marxism is to capital. The Marxists view everything through the lens of capital, and they say that if you ignore that division, you're on the evil side. Critical race theory is saying the exact same thing. Everything should be understood in terms of race. And if you can't see that, it means you're the oppressor. And if you're white, you were born with this original sin of whiteness. That's the word they're using. And you need to actually take actions. And that's where the term anti-racist comes from. You need to take these anti-racist actions to rid yourself of that sin. You have to do penance before the altar of critical race theory. And people don't realize just how insidious it is. They have no concept of it. They have no concept, and they don't realize, you said postmodernism. They don't realize that postmodernism, this ideology, which came over from France and Foucault and all these scholars, literally holds that there is no objective truth. And these people, I've been among them. I graduated college not that long ago. I've lived in DC. I know who these people are. They literally believe that there is no truth. They believe that nothing matters. Everything is defined by these intellectual constructs we can recreate. Therefore, when we come up with critical race theory, that is just as real as the Bible or the laws of physics. They literally believe that they can define reality, and they're going to play by the rules that they set forth. And if you don't agree, you're a racist and you need to be ostracized from society. So forgive my little soliloquy there, but what you
loved
said,
it.
spot on and very rare.
Would you like to go up to 40,000 feet with me for just a minute, since you're well versed in this?
Absolutely.
There is a place where there's a point where we can explore where comprehensive sex ed and critical race theory cross.
Okay.
And you all you have to do is look back to about the 1930s, and an Italian Marxist named Antonio Gramsci. Antonio Gramsci was the father of multiculturalism. He believed that it wasn't economic Marxism that was going to achieve their goal. It was cultural Marxism that was going to achieve their goal. He implemented a kind of a model that's attributed to him called the slow march through the institutions. What do you think we've seen over the last 60, 70 years, but this slow march of cultural Marxism through the institutions? Alinsky, Saul Alinsky, wasn't it him who said the issue is never the issue is always the revolution?
Yep.
It's always been about this. So then a contemporary of Gramsci was an Austrian Marxist by the name of Wilhelm Reich. Wilhelm Reich wrote a book called The Sexual Revolution. And in it, he explained how you take over a society by sexualizing the children. I mean, folks, they told us what they wanted to do. It's all there, but we haven't paid attention, and now it's at our doorstep.
And one of the
But
biggest failings of conservatives is to not properly brand those terms, because you hear the conservative commentators talking about the sexual revolution. You hear them talking about cultural Marxism. You hear that phrase a lot, but people don't realize that the right did not invent those terms to describe what's going on. The left invented them to describe their plan. We didn't look out into society and say, oh, this is cultural Marxism. No, the left came up with cultural Marxism. They wrote books back in the 20th century about exactly how they were going to do it. And now they're coming for us. And the march to the institutions, what you described, people sit around and they wonder, oh, why is academia leaning so far left? Read the book. I mean, it was literally part of their plan.
Yeah, it's there for us, but the promise in all of this is that because it's at our doorstep, for a lot of you parents who have your kids in the public school, this is not at your doorstep. This is in your home. And this is what your children are being taught. But we as a society, as a community, can unite and be such a force of reckoning for the people who are well planned, well thought out, well funded. They've got the media on their side. They're already in the institutions, but the people are not with them. It's just that the people don't really know. And so, what is so important? It's why I think we do what we do at the Child Protection League is we'll give you the information. We'll dig into just a few, right? We can't cover everything. We're not talking about Second Amendment and, all really religious liberty, all really important issues. We're just going to focus on these issues, but we're going to give you accurate information, and we're going to give you tools that you can use to fight back against this tyranny and to protect your children. And so then the key for people who are following is, get informed, share the information, contact your legislators, take a look at your own schools, make that important decision. It's not an easy one of if your children are in the best place, but there are so many options for parents. And I really see that a great awakening has begun to take place in the country. And the people are in the mood to take their country back, but we have to work together to do it.
Some of our longer term viewers may remember when we had Katie Hopkins on the show, the British media personality that came on and helped us assess these problems. One of her main points was that people understand the issues, they're getting the information, but they feel very small in the face of these institutions. And the solution is to form community bonds. So then if we win, we can win together. And if we lose, at least you're close with the people who are around you. And at least you have family connections and interfamily connections and connections in your church. And that's going to be very critical. And you touch on that as well. You say that people need to organize at the local level and hit back against the school districts and sign these petitions. And oops, my microphone. I cannot stress that enough, that it's important to organize on these small levels, find people who agree with you, and find a way to take tangible action with people who are like-minded. That's one of the most critical things people can do.
Yeah, I would say, where is the very first place to start? The very first place to start is in your family.
Yes. In
your nucleus family. Is it, where is it at right there? We know history has proven it. You can say this is my opinion, but if you study history, this has been proven. Mom and dad married, living together with their kids creates a bond that is very hard for the state to destroy. Why do you think they are trying to destroy it with all of these policies? Because they know that if they can weaken the family bond, they can weaken society. And so that's where you start. That's your first priority is, your spouse, your children, make sure those bonds are strong. And then just step out from there. What's the next level of community? Because if look, if, you know, a worst case scenario happened, but you can see this if you've seen natural disasters or anything else that has happened to a community. That community, if those people know each other and there are relationships there, they come together, and that the strength of that community will determine if they can weather that storm.
Exactly.
And so you build from there. And so if you've done it in your community and your community is strong and your family is strong, guess what? If we just all started there, the problem would be solved,
Yeah.
you know, just like that. And so then we can do more, right? And we maybe need to take our civic involvement more seriously.
Absolutely.
You know, we've become lax ourselves, and so we can reckon with that too, and you know, do something about it. I mean, we either do or they win. That's what it comes down to.
What's the quote? Every act of beauty is a revolt against the modern world. I think that's very true. People don't realize that these small little things they do to cherish their traditions, to go to church, to teach your kids about your faith, to just teach your kids how you live life, it is so forgotten nowadays. People forget
Yeah.
the simple beauty of traditional life because they're so wrapped up in media, and children are exposed to so much stimulus and so many divergent ideas from such a young age with the phone and now the schools, that it's more important than ever that you form those bonds. And a lot of people say it in a kitsch way, but I think you're here delivering that message in a heartfelt, meaningful way that people should really take to heart. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's key. It's always been the key. But I think I'll just add, you know, one more thing about what you said, Kyle, about people, you know, feel small and like they can't make a difference. And even in the activist world, in civic engagement, I would encourage people to not underestimate the power of a few of you getting together, the power of a few of you taking something on, because that has been the story of the Child Protection League.
Yeah.
You know, we had this, I'll give you this one example. We're a little organization. We're stealth, you know, I just like, they don't know where to find us. They don't know where we're going to show up. We don't have offices and big budgets, but we can be strategic because we're small enough to be strategic. We were asked a few years back to help fight the Minnesota State High School League when they were proposing a policy that said, for example, a biological male who thinks he's a female should be allowed to play on the girls' team, use their locker room, travel with them, etc. And that policy was being proposed, and they were going to vote on it. And somebody asked us if we would help. We agreed to help. We took out an ad in the Star Tribune. It was a full-page color ad on the back of the sports section. And it was a picture, if you can imagine this, a picture of a shower wall. So you got the shower heads and the faucet, and written on the shower wall, it said, "A male wants to shower next to your 15-year-old daughter. Are you okay with that?" And then underneath it was the names and phone numbers of all of the members of the Minnesota State High School League board.
Yeah.
Well, it went viral. And within they canceled the next meeting. And then they held the meeting in December, like 200 people showed up. One board member said they got somewhere around 10,000 emails and phone calls. They didn't pass the policy. Instead, they backtracked. They passed an appeal process, which basically said Christian, private, public schools, okay, we're not going to mandate this on you, but if a student comes to us and appeals your decision, we're going to use this policy. The media portrayed it as a win for them, but in the reality, that slowed them way down. But after that ad ran, I mean, I think I got 42 interview requests from all across the country. I think I did 39 of them.
Wow.
Folks, I just want you to know that's, don't think you don't have the ability to have an impact. You do. Just take those steps and go forward with faith, because if you've got the truth, you let the other forces fight the battle, and you just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. This is why I appreciate Representative Grossell so much in his bill on the sentencing guidelines. It's just the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So let's put everything aside and get it done. I mean, kids need to be protected.
Exactly. Exactly. And I can second what you're saying about how small groups of people can have a big impact. You'd be amazed how small the conservative media community is. It's not that many people. It's not that much money. Everybody knows each other, and they accomplish a lot with relatively little. You're exactly right. It just takes a few people that know what the truth is and disseminate it, because people can only be conditioned so much. At a base level, people know, they know what hits them in the gut. They know that it's wrong to be letting people who have physically assaulted children in a sexual way walk around without ever doing prison time. They know that it's wrong to have 15-year-old boys and girls showering together, and they can only be conditioned to a certain degree. And if you just have people speaking very candidly, but in an articulate way about the truth, it's going to have a really big impact. You're exactly right.
When it comes to issues affecting children, there's nothing that moves parents more quickly than that. And so my encouragement to legislators who think that these aren't important issues, or they're not as important as, say, taxes or the budget, this is the important issue. This is the issue. These issues regarding protecting children, in my opinion, these are the issues. They should be front and center and number one, because this is what matters to parents. And too often, I think one side allows the other one to dominate the narrative and because they don't want to touch social issues or parents are going to get off the couch no matter how tired they are if their child is in danger.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm kind of being cognizant of our time here. And just before we wrap things up, I want to address some of our viewer questions. The first one, we've got 3 questions. The first one asks if the critical race theory and the new gender ideology would be applied to schools on Native American reservations as well. I don't know the answer. Are you aware of that?
If the mandate passed, I don't know for sure, because I don't know how much there is a crossover between reservations being a sovereign nation and the fact that they rely and they get so much help from the state government. So if they're a sovereign nation, I imagine they could say no. But if they are looking to the Minnesota Department of Education for their curriculum, then yes, that's what they're going to get.
Absolutely. The next question, I'd like to take a crack at this one, but I'm curious to hear your perspective as well. Why are intellectuals drawn into the lie? I imagine this question is asking, why would the collegiate class and the upper class of society be drawn into this lie? My opinion is because it gives them unlimited power. If you can create an ideology that eliminates morality and makes you the arbiter of who is good and who is racist, you have unlimited power. What's your take?
It reminds me, I don't know if this is my take, but it reminds me of Christopher Rufo, who has become one, I don't know if is he an expert on critical race theory, but he has really made an impact on it. And I was reading some of the things on his website, I think some of his articles, and it's like critical race theory has become the next booming business, because and especially if it's going to be mandated, and schools and agencies and businesses are all going to bring in, trainers to train on critical race theory. Oh my goodness. It's the next, I don't know what you would call it. It's not the industrial complex, it's the critical race theory complex. Where this is already a multi-million-dollar industry. So if you can establish your niche, then you're going to be in demand, and your books are going to be bought, and your curriculum is going to be bought. And, who writes these curriculum, a lot of time they're coming out of the universities. Yeah. And so I think that maybe that's not the core of it, but that has got to be a factor.
I mean, look at Robin DiAngelo. She wrote White Fragility. Her book is now required reading at dozens of colleges and some public schools as well. That's a pretty big paycheck. If the government's looking to buy something and you can provide that service, the price tag becomes irrelevant. You make a very, very good parallel comparing it to the military industrial complex. The price of things ceases to matter when you're selling to the government. If they think it's worth it, they'll give you any amount of money.
Yeah, Christopher Rufo, what he exposed in the New York Post was how many federal agencies were bringing in these trainers to train on critical race theory. And if you recall, at one of the Trump-Biden debates, Chris Wallace said, why did you put an end to diversity training and critical race theory? And Trump said, because it's racist.
Yep.
They're teaching them to hate America. And I mean, that's about as simple as you can say it, but that is the truth.
And if people don't understand what you've been articulating, they'll look at that question in the debate and they'll take it at face value. And when the moderator asks, why did you end diversity training? You're left to assume Trump ended anti-racism training. That seems pretty bad on its face. But once you get into it and you understand what you've been articulating here, you get that, no, that's not what he did at all. He ended this Marxist, yeah, we discussed it. We know what it is, but it's much deeper than most people realize.
I think it's important for people to have at least a somewhat of an understanding of the 50,000 foot view, so that you understand that the issue is never the issue.
Right.
The issue is always the revolution. It's always about what Gramsci and Wilhelm Reich and Marx were purporting. It's always that has always been the real agenda. And so what is the end game? The end game is to make us weak, to make us docile, and a country that is filled with people who are like that is a country that's easy to take over.
Exactly.
Do you think that there isn't anybody out there in the world who wants to take over America? That can't happen, right, Kyle? That's just conspiracy theory.
There are no malicious actors in the world. Everybody is totally innocent. But that's a really good point, though, that the issue is never the issue. The issue is the revolution. Look at Occupy Wall Street and how quickly that fell apart. The issue was Wall Street bankers, and skip 6 or 7 years ahead, and Wall Street bankers are now financing critical race theory, and no one has a problem with the Wall Street bankers anymore. The issue is just for the far left to piggyback on whatever the hot issue is to destroy any institution. The point is just destroying strong institutions to make people more docile, more emasculated, more humiliated by their own condition, so that you can make them do anything you want them to do. That's absolutely right. To re-articulate and to recap, because we've covered a lot here, I've really enjoyed it. What are these bills that we need to support, and what are these bills we need to oppose? I know you mentioned House File 226 and 229. Reminder of what those are.
Thank you. Those are the sentencing guidelines bills that Representative Matt Grossell is the chief author in the House, and Senator Bill Ingebretson is the chief author in the Senate. Please contact your legislators and ask them to sign on as an author to show their support of those bills and to get them heard in committee and start moving them forward. Comprehensive sex ed is moving forward in the House. That is House File 358. Contact your legislator. Get more info at our website if you need to. Contact your House member and tell them, if you're for that, I'm not for you. I mean, you don't have to argue it with them. You just tell them the bottom line. We don't want that bill being used as a bargaining chip, at the end of the day, to pass a budget this year when it goes to conference committee. Absolutely. And then what was the other? Critical race theory is it's not being addressed in the Minnesota legislature that I know. That I don't think there's a bill, but Senator Tom Cotton on the federal level, he just introduced a bill banning critical race theory. I would suggest people go to Christopher Rufo, his website, and I know he just put up some articles on the Tom Cotton bill, but there is more information on the Child Protection League, cplaction.com, on our website about those issues. And there are some other bills, you know, the Page Kashkari amendment, you know, to make education a fundamental human right in Minnesota by changing the Constitution. We're opposed to that, and we explain why on our website. In Minnesota, children who are issued Chromebooks, you know, for school. Sorry, folks, those aren't safe. They use different software, data research software that does not filter out porn. That's all over our website. There's a bill Eric Lucero is carrying for us to require the schools to require any third-party vendors to put, you know, protections on Chromebook, on those data research services, so that they block that stuff out. And then the last one, you know, look into the fact that in Minnesota and in 43 other states, in Minnesota and 42 other states, you can't show obscenity to children. If you take that book, It's Perfectly Normal, and you go to the park and you start showing that to 10-year-olds, you're going to get arrested.
Yep.
So why is it that the schools can do it? Because the schools are exempt from Minnesota's obscenity laws. And we think it's high time to repeal that law.
Yeah, maybe the people that are in charge of managing your children all day should have to follow laws that prevent people from distributing pornography. That seems, you know, everything we've talked about tonight seems so basic, and you just have to wonder sometimes, why are they hesitant to institute these changes? What's motivating them? Very disturbing.
Yeah, that's a topic for another day. And
hopefully you can come back and we can discuss it. This has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. I hope to have you on again soon. Guys, this has been Michele Lentz. Go to her website, that's cplaction.com. Learn about these issues, get educated, form bonds with those around you. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening, and God bless.
Thank you.